One evening, Hana lounges in her room, flipping through the pages of her favorite shoujo manga. As she reads about fairy tale romances and dramatic confessions, she wonders what it would be like to experience that kind of love in real life. By the next morning, those thoughts still linger as she eats breakfast with her family. Her dad tries to make small talk, but it's obvious he has an agenda. He wants to know if Hana has a crush. When she doesn't answer him directly, he immediately jumps to conclusions and assumes that she does and panics, insisting she's too young for love. Trying to calm him down, Hana quietly admits to herself that given her looks, she might not ever experience a relationship like the ones in her manga. But instead of cooling down, her dad blurts out that Hana has a crush. Much to his dismay, her mom is excited by the news. She starts pressing Hana for details, but Hana quickly rushes through her meal and escapes before things get even more awkward. On her way to school, Hana feels a twinge of guilt, not because she's hiding a crush, but because she hasn't made a single friend since starting high school. Most days, she just spends her breaks in the bathroom, playing gacha games on her phone. Once she arrives in class, Hana's relieved to be the first one there. She immediately goes over to tend to the classroom flowers, enjoying the rare moment where she can feel like a pretty girl tending to flowers. As she moves to throw the old flowers out, she notices that some of the flowers from the previous day are still fresh, so she carefully places some in her hair, pretending, just for a second, that she's the heroine of her favorite manga as she checks how she looks on her phone. But then, breaking her from her small moment of bliss, Yusuke walks into the classroom. Caught mid-fantasy, Hana freezes. She panics at the thought that Yusuke might tell everyone about her weird habit, and in a desperate move, she even considers bribing him with cash. But Yusuke doesn't notice her panic or the attempted bribe. Instead, he casually compliments the flower in her hair. Hana, not used to compliments, completely misreads his tone and thinks he's mocking her. Embarrassed, she bolts out of the room, leaving Yusuke confused for her sudden shyness. As he watches her leave, he notices the flower on the table is different from yesterday's. The school starts to fill up, but Hana hides in the bathroom, scolding herself for acting like a shoujo manga character. She knows real life doesn't work that way, and she's convinced she's about to become the joke of the school since Yusuke will probably tell everyone how weird she is. As the chimes ring, she steels herself and slowly heads back to class, praying that Yusuke hasn't told anyone. When she enters the room, she overhears Yusuke and his friends chatting nearby. Assuming the worst, her stomach drops. But then Yusuke approaches her, slightly concerned since she had run away from him earlier. She avoids eye contact, but he gently steps into her line of sight and dangles a muffin in front of her. He tells her it's from Sumire, a popular girl who baked enough for the entire class. And this one, he says with a small smile, is hers. Hana blushes at the rare display of kindness, surprised that someone like Yusuke would go out of his way to give her something. But the moment is short-lived as he is quickly called back to his seat by his friends, who are apparently devouring all of his muffins. As he leaves, Hana feels a wave of relief. At least he didn't say anything about what happened earlier that morning. Class begins, but Hana's worries return as she believes that Yusuke will eventually tell someone. She convinces herself that she has to do something, anything, to make sure her secret is safe. She decides to confront him during break time when they are both free. But when the break finally comes, Hana stays frozen in her seat. She has no idea how to approach Yusuke, especially when he's always surrounded by people. She decides to wait till people disperse around him before approaching him. She ends up following him around, hoping for a perfect opening, but no luck. Wherever Yusuke goes, a friend is always by his side. During PE, Hana watches as he outshines all the other guys without even trying. Whether it's his athleticism, his easygoing nature, or just the way he treats others, Yusuke's popularity is on another level. She begins to think that maybe he's kind of cool, but she quickly snaps out of it, reminding herself that this isn't about falling for him, it's about protecting her secret. Someone like her doesn't have the right to even talk to someone like him. So instead, she decides to write a letter as it is easier, and no one has to know. As she nervously approaches the shoe locker area to slip her note into Yusuke's shoebox, she notices another girl standing there too, holding a letter of her own. Hana quickly hides and listens in. One of the girls confesses that she's finally going to confess to Yusuke with a love letter as her friend cheers her on to push through with it. Hana's face turns beet red as she realizes she is witnessing a real love confession through a letter, just like in her manga. Suddenly, she starts to panic that her letter might be seen as a possible love letter as well. Before she can decide what to do, Yusuke spots her and walks over with a friendly smile, clearly wanting to talk. Hana's heart races, but she tells herself that this is the perfect chance to confront him about her secret. But before she can say anything, Tetsuo calls out to Yusuke, telling him to hurry back to the classroom with him. Yusuke tries to explain that Hana was just about to say something, but Hana shakes her head, loses her nerve, and runs away. Watching her go, Tetsuo asks who she is and is shocked to learn that Hana has been their classmate this whole time. The school day ends without Hana ever handing over the letter. Feeling defeated, she leaves the classroom to water the flowers in the garden, hoping to drown her thoughts in routine. But then, Yusuke appears again, running up to her. He apologizes for not finishing their conversation during lunch. Seeing that Yusuke had gone out of his way to apologize, Hana finally gathers the courage to ask him to keep her secret about putting flowers in her hair. To her surprise, Yusuke's eyes light up. That's when it hits him. Hana is the one who's been arranging the classroom flowers every morning. He beams at her, genuinely delighted. He tells her he's always appreciated the flower arrangements and had been wondering who was behind them. But Hana misinterprets his smile. She assumes he's disappointed that someone like her, someone she sees as plain and unattractive, was the one doing it. So flustered, she quickly apologizes. Yusuke is confused but doesn't press further. He says he has to get going, mentioning that he has something to finish up. Before leaving, he reassures her with a smile that he won't tell anyone about the flowers. Hana, still dazed from the conversation, can't help but replay his words in her head. The way he promised to keep her secret, it sounded exactly like something the male lead in a shoujo manga would say to the heroine. To snap herself out of the fantasy, she gives herself a hard slap on the cheek. Still unconvinced that someone could be that nice, she imagines a darker version of the scenario, Yusuke saying the same promise but with an evil grin, telling her he'll use the secret as blackmail material. The next day, Hana wakes up from that imaginary nightmare and heads to school. After finishing her morning committee duties, she hides away in the bathroom and plays a visual novel where she's romancing a fictional guy. She manages to get a good response from the in-game character and thinks how easy life would be if real people had visible affection meters and that players should be given dialogue options like in games. That way she'd know exactly how to interact with others. Eventually, she returns to the classroom and Yusuke is the first to notice her. He calls out to her cheerfully, which startles Hana so much that her chair nearly falls backward, but it's caught just in time by Sumire, who smiles warmly at her. Yusuke rushes over to check on them and Sumire scolds him for surprising Hana. The two slip into an easy, natural conversation, which Hana watches in silent awe. They invite her to go over assignments with them, but Hana freezes, unsure how to respond. Before she can say anything, another classmate injects himself into the conversation. Later in the day, the teacher reminds everyone about their committee meetings. Hana eagerly heads out, only to be stopped by a fellow beautification committee member from another class, who asks if Hana can cover for her due to an urgent matter. Hana agrees to help without a second thought. In truth, she prefers working alone rather than with committee members she barely speaks to. When the meeting starts, the beautification committee is told to pair up due to the large workload. Hana quickly realizes how much work there is, but still reassures the committee president that she's fine handling both her own responsibilities and the missing member's share. After some hesitation, the president accepts her offer. Soon, Hana finds herself alone, staring at the big number of bags of soil and plants meant for a new flower bed. Meanwhile, as Yusuke is about to head home, he overhears the very girl Hana offered to cover for, casually bragging about skipping a meeting. Apparently, she had no intention of helping and showed no remorse for dumping the work on Hana. Annoyed by what he hears, Yusuke texts his friends that he'll meet them later and rushes off to find Hana. He spots her just as she's about to start planting. Hana jumps in surprise when Yusuke suddenly shows up and offers to help. She immediately tries to talk him out of it, pointing out how dirty and sweaty the work is. But Yusuke insists, saying it doesn't feel right that she's doing everything alone. Thinking he's misunderstanding the situation, that she's getting bullied, Hana panics a little. She explains that she volunteered to help because her fellow committee member had urgent business to attend to. Still, Yusuke chooses to stay, and before long, they fall into a steady rhythm of planting together. As a gentle breeze passes by, Hana catches a whiff of Yusuke's cologne. It smells just as nice as he looks. That realization hits her hard, and she suddenly becomes very aware of how sweaty and smelly she is. Embarrassed, she starts working farther away, worried that he'll notice her smell. Yusuke looks up to say something and is surprised to see her moving to the other side of the flower bed. Thanks to his help, they finish the work while the sun is still in the sky. Just then, Hana's stomach growls, and to her horror, Yusuke hears it. He just laughs and says it's totally normal to be hungry after hard work. Before she knows it, Hana finds herself walking to a convenience store with him. As they browse for food, she begins to regret it, worried someone might recognize them together. Yusuke notices her troubled expression and assumes she's just super hungry. Feeling guilty for driving him along, Hana offers to treat him, but Yusuke refuses and pays for his own food. He tells her to take her time choosing and that he'll wait outside. Once she checks out, Hana comes up to him with a plastic bag and insists he take it as thanks. Yusuke hesitantly accepts, only to find it packed with snacks and drinks. Hana shyly admits she didn't know what he liked, so she just bought a little of everything. Moved by her kindness, Yusuke decides to give her his karaage. She takes a bite, and her face lights up with joy. Seeing her reaction, Yusuke grins and casually tells her that he'll buy karaage for two, so they can share the next time. Hana nearly chokes on her food at the suggestion. Yusuke, startled, scrambles to hand her a bottle of water. From a distance, unknown to the two, Sumire watches them silently. As Hana realizes their conversation falling more naturally, she allows herself to think that she finally found a friend. One morning, Sumire was sharing a flyer for a nearby bowling alley. Her friends gathered around and suggested that they should all go one day. Tsutomu, who is eavesdropping on the conversation, suddenly reveals that he has a coupon for 50% off. He offers to give it to them, but Sumire insists that he should come along too. She admits it wouldn't sit right with her to use the coupon if Tsutomu weren't there as well. Tsutomu, now excited, rushes over to Yusuke and asks him to join them. The moment Yusuke agrees to go, almost all the other boys immediately follow suit. With the plan quickly expanding into a class hangout, Sumire then decides to invite Hana too, wanting to include her in a class activity. Caught off guard, Hana doesn't quite hear Sumire properly and accidentally agrees. And just like that, Hana ends up at the bowling alley with nearly her entire class. As the class begins deciding on teams, Hana tries to wrap her head around how she ended up there in the first place. She glances around at the group, especially at the girls, and realizes she doesn't even know most of them. The girls decide their groups through rock, paper, scissors. To Hana's surprise, she ends up on the same team as Sumire, who looks genuinely delighted by the result. Hana can't help but admire Sumire's kindness and cheerful energy, so she tells herself that she'll try her best today. Sumire leaves to go look for their male teammates. Hana quietly feels grateful for this unexpected turn of events until she realizes who their male teammates are: Yusuke, Tsutomu, and Tetsuo. When the game begins, Hana watches in awe as Sumire bowls effortlessly. Not only is she good, but she somehow manages to look adorable while doing it. Their team cheers her on, and soon enough, it's Hana's turn. Nervously, she steps up to the lane. Just as she's about to throw the ball, the lights dim and a loud announcement echoes through the alley. It's time for the Moonlight Challenge. The current players get one shot. If they knock down 9 or more pins, it's counted as a strike, and the winners get a free photo booth picture. Sumire immediately says she wants to win so she can take photos, and Tsutomu starts hyping Hana up, cheering for her to win the challenge. Hana watches the other players throw their balls before nervously trying her best. Unfortunately, hers rolls straight into the gutter. Embarrassed, she quietly returns to her team. Yusuke gently tells her to watch him bowl so she can learn how to aim and score better next time. Yusuke effortlessly lands a strike, shocking Hana with how smooth and natural his movements are. As she steps back, she notices Tsutomu taking a selfie nearby. He explains that he needs to update his story and proudly shows the picture to Hana. But when she looks at it, she's confused. The photo doesn't even show him bowling. Sumire giggles and says she loves how photos give people something to look back on. Suddenly, she asks if she can take a photo of Hana and Yusuke together. Yusuke poses without hesitation, but Hana freezes. She has no idea how to react. She fidgets nervously and the photo ends up blurry. Still, Sumire seems content and continues snapping photos of their team throughout the day. Later on, Hana mentally prepares herself for one more game. She carefully polishes her bowling ball, determined to do better. Yusuke and Tetsuo come over to check on her. Noticing how shiny her ball has become, Hana places the ball back down and grabs her strawberry milk instead. Suddenly, Tetsuo brings up something unexpected. He asks what she and Yusuke were talking about the other day. Yusuke immediately scolds Tetsuo, saying that his conversation with Hana is meant to stay a secret. Hana stares at Yusuke, stunned. She didn't think he'd actually keep his word. The fact that he remembered and defended her makes her heart flutter. She blushes, touched by his kindness. Sumire, however, seems to notice their exchange. Before long, it's Hana's turn again. Nervously, she steps up to the lane. Remembering Yusuke's advice, she takes a breath, clears her mind, and tries to mimic his form. The ball rolls down the lane, and to her delight, it knocks down all the pins, granting her a strike. Her team cheers, and as she turns back, Yusuke is the first to congratulate her, flashing her an encouraging smile as she returns. Blushing, Hana thanks him sincerely. For the first time, she feels like she's not just doing better, she feels like she's making real friends. Yusuke, moved by her words, quietly prepares for his next turn. Meanwhile, Hana, still riding the high of her success, notices her shoelace is untied. She quickly bends down to tie it, using the ball return for balance, completely unaware that the ball is already on its way back and slams into her fingers. Sumire immediately brings her over to the vending machines and buys her a cold drink to help with the swelling. Hana is grateful, but her excitement has completely faded. She blames herself for ruining the fun. She wonders if Sumire regrets inviting her and starts to apologize, but Sumire beats her to it, apologizing first. Noticing Hana's confused expression, Sumire admits to herself that she may have meddled too much. Her intention was to give Hana a chance to spend more time with Yusuke, under the assumption that the two of them were secretly dating. Hana stares at her, completely blank. Her mind reels, lips parting slightly in shock before she silently asks Sumire to clarify what she meant. Sumire, unfazed, brings up the convenience store encounter where she had seen Hana and Yusuke together. Yusuke's arm draped around Hana's shoulders as they exited. She also recalls overhearing Tetsuo mention that the two had a private conversation one afternoon. The weight of the misunderstanding hits Hana all at once. She worries that such a rumor could ruin his reputation or make others treat him differently. In her flustered state, Hana tries to explain herself. She insists that there is absolutely nothing romantic between her and Yusuke. She tells Sumire that Yusuke is just the kind of person who's kind to everyone, regardless of appearance or status. In her mind, she's just another oddity to him, someone interesting in the way a peculiar object might be. Sumire's expression shifts. Relief washes over her face and she seems to understand. But before Hana can fully register that response, Yusuke appears beside them, casually returning their bags. Their classmates have already gone, and the day is quietly coming to an end. Hana accepts her bag and watches the two of them walk ahead. She finds herself quietly admiring how natural they look together. Hana can't help but think they would make a great couple. During Golden Week, Hana wakes up to a message from Sumire. Still groggy, she checks her phone and finds a handful of photos from the bowling trip. She scrolls through them, each one capturing small, cheerful moments between teammates. Seeing herself among them feels surreal. Her quiet reflection is interrupted when her mother calls her down for lunch. Soon she finds herself seated at a restaurant with her parents. Her father brings up how much she's grown and even starts teasing her about future weddings. Her mother joins in the playful banter as Hana browses the menu, pretending not to hear them. As the waiter approaches to take their order, Hana glances up and freezes. Kneeling beside their table is Yusuke, wearing the uniform of the restaurant. It takes her a moment to process it. Reality hits like a brick. Yusuke, it turns out, works part-time at the okonomiyaki place. Hana's face burns with embarrassment. She hadn't expected to run into him here of all places. All she wants now is to eat quickly and head home to pretend the whole thing never happened. But her parents are far too curious. Even her father notes out loud that Yusuke is surprisingly good-looking. Seeing that Hana isn't offering clear answers, her mother takes matters into her own hands and begins directing questions straight to Yusuke. To Hana's horror, Yusuke answers each one cheerfully, unaware that her mother tends to go overboard once she starts. Just as Hana begins to panic, her father steps in to remind his wife that they still need to place their order. Hana silently thanks him, until he casually announces that Hana will be getting a large serving of natto kimchi. Yusuke appears unfazed, but Hana, mortified, quickly tries to change her order to a small veggie okonomiyaki instead. Her mother, however, insists loudly that there will be no changes, adding that Hana is just too shy around handsome men. Yusuke quietly accepts the order as is, but Hana pleads with him to please give her the vegetable dish anyway. When Yusuke heads off to prepare the food, both parents begin eyeing Hana with curious expressions. Her mother looks absolutely thrilled at the idea of Hana having such a good-looking friend. Her father, while slightly amused, still reminds her that Hana is too young to have a boyfriend. Before Hana can recover, Tetsuo walks into the restaurant and immediately spots them. He greets her parents politely, only further fueling her mother's enthusiasm at the realization that Hana has made more than one friend. Watching her parents, Hana can practically read their thoughts just from their expressions. The situation is becoming more unbearable by the minute, so she decides the only way to keep things from spiraling is to keep her mother distracted. When the ingredients arrive at the table, Hana tries to volunteer to cook, but her mother quickly requests that Yusuke be the one to cook for them. Hana protests, but Tetsuo backs her mother up, claiming that okonomiyaki is safest in Yusuke's capable hands. He even jokes that he could fall asleep and still trust the dish to be perfect. Hana tells herself she can endure 10 minutes of bland conversation to prevent further embarrassment. But before she can even begin, her mother beats her to it and asks both boys if they have girlfriends. Tetsuo replies respectfully with a simple no. Yusuke, on the other hand, seems to hesitate slightly, glancing at Hana before answering. The awkward pause doesn't go unnoticed. Feeling the tension rising, Hana tries once more to take over the cooking, but in her haste, her fingers brush against the edge of the hot grill. She winces and quickly excuses herself, heading to the restroom to cool her burned hand. Alone, she reflects on how these kinds of embarrassing moments seem to be happening more often lately. When she returns to the table, the food's already prepared. As she begins eating, she notices a glass filled to the brim with ice beside her plate. It was left there by Yusuke for her burn. Touched by the gesture, she promises her parents she'll thank him properly when they settle the bill. Her mother, however, has other plans. She reminds Hana that she still has to thank him when he brings out the birthday cake she ordered in secret. Yusuke reappears just in time to overhear this and is surprised to learn that it's Hana's birthday. She had hoped to keep that detail quiet, but instead of teasing her, Yusuke simply says he would have written a birthday message on her okonomiyaki if he'd known. Tetsuo then offers her a photo booth coin he won during the bowling trip. Yusuke rummages through his apron and pulls out a couple of coupons as his gift. He tells her his shift schedule and mentions that he hopes she'll visit again. Overwhelmed, Hana promises to celebrate both of their birthdays, only to immediately regret blurting it out. But to her surprise, both boys smile and reveal that their birthdays fall on holidays too. Sumire remembers she had always gotten attention due to her good looks even as a child. By the time she reached 4th grade, she realized she could use it to her advantage. Life could instantly be easier thanks to her popularity. Now, as she makes her way to class, a boy approaches her asking for her IN number. She inwardly cringes, wondering how to turn him down without ruining her reputation. Putting on a troubled expression, Tsutomu quickly rushes in to shoo the boy away. The guy retreats for now, and Tsutomu takes the opportunity to ask for her IN account so they can mail each other. But before Sumire can answer, one of her friends pulls her away. When she enters the classroom, she is greeted by Yusuke. She thinks to herself that if Yusuke were the one asking for her IN number, she would readily give it to him since he's handsome, kind, and easy to talk to. But instead of lingering on her, Yusuke walks past and heads straight to Hana, offering her some lunch coupons from his work for her mother. Sumire finds it suspicious that Yusuke is concerned about Hana's mother and starts to wonder how deep their relationship truly goes. Trying to reassure herself that there's nothing going on between Yusuke and Hana, Sumire is once again thrown off when she sees Tetsuo acting equally friendly with Hana. She begins to wonder what kind of strategist Hana is and decides to insert herself into their conversation to find out. Hana greets her nervously, unaware that Sumire is now determined to uncover the secret to her charm. During gym class, Sumire pairs up with Hana, hoping to learn what makes her so appealing to the boys, especially Yusuke. To her disappointment, Hana goes through the exercises with zero effort to be cute or charming. With PE being a complete failure, Sumire decides to get to know Hana better by inviting her to lunch. She shows off a cute, well-prepared bento as they sit across from each other. When Hana reveals her own lunch, both she and Sumire are horrified to see it's just plain rice and pickled plum. Yusuke notices the two sitting together, something he's observed more often lately. A week later, Sumire sits in the girls' restroom, satisfied with the thought that if anyone were to compare her to Hana, she would still come out as the better girl. As she walks through the hall, Sumire briefly thinks that Hana is aware she's being watched and has been deliberately dodging her observations. So when she runs into Hana, she decides to join her after school for beautification committee chores. She inwardly groans as she sits next to Hana by the flower bed, already dreading sunburn and getting dirty, but she maintains a cheerful smile to avoid giving herself away. Before they work, Hana comments that Sumire looks beautiful surrounded by flowers. Sumire pretends to appreciate the compliment and continues with the weeding. She pulls a little too hard on one weed and doesn't notice the earthworms that land on her uniform from the soil. Hana points them out, and Sumire immediately freaks out and rushes off to wash and calm herself down. As she walks back, she debates whether to just skip out and leave Hana to finish the work alone, but she freezes when she notices Yusuke nearby. She's about to greet him, but stops in her tracks when she sees him walking straight to Hana instead. Yusuke asks if Hana is once again left to do committee work alone, but Hana tells him that Sumire is helping out today. She then shows him the salvia flowers he helped her plant, now in full bloom. Sumire watches them from a distance and feels a renewed determination. She absolutely has to figure out Hana's secret to catching Yusuke's attention. Once Yusuke leaves, she approaches Hana and invites her to hang out once they're done with committee work. Her true motive is that she hopes to get close enough that Hana will eventually give up on Yusuke. Meanwhile, Yusuke is brought to a multi-hobby shop by Tsutomu, who secretly wants to find out more about Yusuke's hobbies and possibly get him to open up. He starts by asking Yusuke about his dating experiences in junior high, only to be shocked when Yusuke says he's never had a girlfriend. Most of his interactions with girls, he explains, involve being scolded about school matters. Tsutomu can't help but feel a tinge of jealousy. No one ever approached him in junior high. When he finally asks if Yusuke has a crush, Yusuke admits he does. Tsutomu feels oddly relieved that his crush doesn't seem to be Sumire. Tsutomu decides to give Yusuke some advice, proudly calling himself the master of love. He tells Yusuke that a girl who is calm and serious would suit him best. Yusuke seems to think it over and asks if he means someone like Hana, but Tsutomu immediately shoots the idea down, insisting that Hana is a bad match in every possible aspect. Just then, Tsutomu hears some familiar voices. He peeks over a shelf and is horrified to see some of his former junior high classmates nearby. Meanwhile, Hana finds herself wandering a posh shopping mall and can't help but feel completely out of place. Sumire, who invited her, suggests they check out the pharmacy first. Hana thinks she can handle that much, but as soon as she sees the overwhelming variety of hair treatment products, her mind begins to spin. Sumire asks curiously what kind of treatment Hana uses. Hana awkwardly admits that she doesn't really use any. Smiling herself, Sumire quietly vows to make Hana back down by making her realize how unfeminine she is in comparison. This time, it's a boutique filled with frilly and girly clothing. Hana stares at the aisles, clearly overwhelmed again. A sales clerk approaches, offering to help her try something on, and Sumire quickly agrees on Hana's behalf. Pressured into the situation, Hana tries on a dress, but it looks terrible on her. She tries another one, but the result is the same. When Sumire calls out, asking if Hana is ready, she steps inside the dressing room wearing the same pink dress. Hana explains that the dress didn't suit her, so she changed back. Sumire's plan backfires completely. She had wanted to show how much better she looked than Hana in the same dress. Hana feels relieved she changed quickly. She believes Sumire might have been horrified to see her in the same outfit. She adds that she couldn't afford to buy the dress anyway. Realizing Hana had dodged her challenge again, Sumire decides to turn the tables and asks where Hana usually shops. Hana thinks for a moment, listing places like fast food chains and bookstores, but she really doesn't know where to take her. Back at the hobby shop, Yusuke asks Tsutomu if he has a girlfriend. Before he can answer, Tsutomu turns to him wearing a full face mask. He declares the store a battlefield and tells Yusuke not to call his name aloud. As Tsutomu tries to sneak away, a group of his old classmates appears near the aisle they are in. He panics and turns to run straight to the exit. Yusuke, unfazed, pulls off the mask and reminds him that he can't leave while wearing a product he hasn't paid for. Looking for another item to conceal his identity, Tsutomu spots a pair of goofy star-shaped sunglasses and puts them on. Yusuke approaches him with concern and notices that Tsutomu is sweating. Without thinking, Tsutomu brushes him off, telling him to go away. But as Yusuke suddenly walks past him in silence, Tsutomu realizes a moment too late that his words may have come off harsher than intended. He quickly removes the sunglasses and calls out to Yusuke, but just as he does, figures step in front of him, blocking his way. Elsewhere, Hana is still pondering where to take Sumire when she spots a small general store filled with cute accessories. To her relief, Sumire is genuinely impressed by the selection. Sumire admits she's drawn to floral designs because of her name. She then encourages Hana to buy something for herself, secretly hoping to pick out something unflattering to highlight Hana's lack of style. But before Sumire can suggest something, Hana chooses a headband decorated with fake grass, leaving Sumire momentarily speechless. Baffled by Hana's poor taste, Sumire questions her choice, assuming Hana would have gone for something floral instead. She then offers Hana a cloverleaf hairpin, suggesting it as a simple yet charming accessory. She suddenly freezes, realizing too late that she just gave Hana genuine styling advice. Hana, touched by the gesture, sees it as a sign of kindness. She happily decides to buy the pin and stares at the small paper bag. She hopes that one day she'll find the courage to wear it, and that when she does, Yusuke might notice and compliment her. That thought sends her into a panic. Realizing she's thinking of Yusuke again, she shakes her head and shouts for the thought to disappear, startling Sumire, who stares at her in confusion. Later, they stop by a cafe for some snacks. Hana begins to feel a little guilty, wondering if Sumire had held back from shopping because of her. Meanwhile, Sumire is quietly frustrated as she still hasn't figured Hana out. To shift the conversation, she casually asks Hana for romance advice. Hana panics once more, her only experience being through shoujo manga and 2D gacha game scenarios. Sumire then adds that the advice is actually for a friend who has a crush on the most popular guy in their class. As Hana listens to Sumire explain her friend's dilemma, she begins to wonder if the guy in question is actually Yusuke. The more details Sumire shares, the more Hana's thoughts drift toward him. Sumire then asks if her friend has any real chance at winning her crush over. Feeling a pang of disappointment, Hana admits she's not sure her friend stands a chance, but still encourages her to confess her feelings anyway. The words surprise even herself. In her flustered state, she accidentally spills her coffee. Meanwhile, the people blocking Tsutomu turn out to be his old classmates. They quickly resume mocking him just like they did in junior high. As Tsutomu begins to falter under their insults, Yusuke returns with a bottle of water and casually asks if the group are Tsutomu's old friends. When they confirm, Yusuke introduces himself with a smile as Tsutomu's good friend. The girls in the group are immediately taken with him, and the boys suddenly grow quiet, deciding to leave Tsutomu alone before awkwardly exiting the store. Back at the cafe, Sumire is left confused by Hana's reaction. In her mind, she decides to ask Hana for help in winning Yusuke over. If Hana believed she was helping a friend, she might step aside and give up on her feelings. She hears a sound behind her and expects to see Hana, but instead, a strange man approaches her and insists on talking. She tells him she's with a friend, but he presses on, saying his friend is also looking for company. The situation escalates. Hana witnesses the scene and hesitates, unsure of what to do until one of the men grabs Sumire's arm. That moment snaps Hana into action. She steps forward and begs the men to leave Sumire alone, firmly claiming that Sumire is her friend. Strangely, the men back off and leave. Meanwhile, Tsutomu learns that Yusuke had only left to buy water for him since he looked pale. He takes a gulp only to find out it's actually sparkling water. Later, as they part ways, Sumire invites Hana to hang out again. As they all go their separate ways, Sumire is left feeling conflicted. All this time trying to bring her down, only to discover that Hana might actually be a genuinely kind person. Kizuki stares at his brother for a moment before slamming his backpack onto Yusuke's body to wake him up. Jolted awake, Yusuke groans and Kizuki casually tells him he should be thankful for the rude awakening, since it got him up on time. Despite the abruptness, Yusuke glances at the time on his phone and realizes Kizuki has a point. As he looks out the window, he wonders if Hana is already at school. At school, Hana shyly admires herself in a small mirror, wearing the clover-shaped hairpin Sumire had picked out for her. But just as quickly, she pulls it out, her nerves getting the better of her. She's still too embarrassed to wear it around others. Throughout the morning, she silently studies how other girls wear their accessories, wondering what hairstyle would best suit the pin someday. Yusuke arrives at class just as Hana is deep in thought. Tsutomu immediately pounces on him, eager to borrow the newest manga volume. In the scuffle, Yusuke loses his balance and stumbles, bumping into Hana's desk and knocking several papers to the floor. Hana instinctively apologizes, but Yusuke insists it was his fault and that she had every right to be sitting there. He helps gather her scattered belongings, handing her items one by one. Hana quietly marvels at how kind he can be, even in clumsy moments like these. Just then, Sumire strolls up to her, noticing Hana isn't wearing the hairpin. With a smile that hides ulterior motives, she offers to help put it on for her. Secretly, Sumire plans to give Hana a terrible hairstylist payback for Yusuke speaking to her first that morning. But when Hana searches her bag, she realizes the pin is missing. Before she can search further, the teacher enters and calls the class to order. Sumire retreats, deciding to try again later. During homeroom, Hana grows pale as she begins to suspect the pin in her hairstyle notes may have fallen when Yusuke bumped into her desk. The teacher asks if she's feeling alright, but Hana quietly insists she's fine. Internally, she's panicking. If anyone sees those notes, it would be the end of her. She watches Yusuke carefully, relieved he hasn't noticed the notebook. Determined, she vows to retreat unnoticed. She spends the rest of the morning stealthily stalking Yusuke, waiting for the right moment. During lunch, Yusuke searches his bag and gasps. Hana freezes, thinking he had finally realized the mix-up, but it turns out he just forgot his drink and leaves to buy one. Just as Hana prepares to retrieve her things, Sumire asks to join Yusuke. Hana watches as he casually helps fix a strand of Sumire's hair. From her seat, Hana watches the interaction with a heavy heart. She decides not to retrieve the notebook just yet, suddenly feeling like she and Yusuke are worlds apart. After school, Hana waters the flowers by her usual spot, quietly hoping Yusuke would pass by and strike up a conversation like he often did. But when the door finally opens, it's not Yusuke. Instead, it's Tetsuo. He casually informs her that Yusuke had already gone home for the day. Disappointed, Hana returns home, her gloom apparent. Her mother notices the look on her face and gently asks what's wrong. Hana doesn't confess the truth that she's upset about Yusuke possibly finding her hairpin and notebook. Instead, her mother smiles and tells her she can run an errand for her by delivering a jar of pickles to Yusuke. Hana's eyes widen when her mother refers to him by his first name. Before she can get a clear answer, her mother hands her the jar and a small map to his house. She gives her a knowing wink, much to Hana's dread. With every step, Hana grows more anxious. Along the way, she passes a small flower shop and pauses to admire the blossoms. A blonde woman named Ritsuko steps out of the shop and asks if Hana's looking to buy some. Embarrassed, Hana admits she's thinking of giving flowers to a boy but isn't sure he'd like them. Ritsuko reassures her that any gift, especially one chosen with care, can make someone happy. A younger boy named Kizuki grumbles that he wouldn't be thrilled to receive flowers himself. Hana's surprised to see a boy working in a flower shop. Ritsuko apologizes for his attitude and puts a floral ribbon on Hana's paper bag. To Hana's surprise, Ritsuko insists the ribbon is a gift. Hana debates explaining that her present isn't for a date, but ultimately decides to accept Ritsuko's kind gesture. Ritsuko cheerfully waves her off, beaming about young love. Kizuki rolls his eyes at the comment, only for Ritsuko to tease that with that attitude. He'll never be popular with girls. Annoyed, Kizuki grumbles that he's heading home and asks for his own bouquet before Ritsuko disappears inside. Eventually, Hana arrives at Yusuke's home. She stalls in front of the door, nervously rehearsing what she might say. Just then, Kizuki appears behind her, asking what business she has in front of his home. Hana freezes, recognizing Kizuki from the flower shop and realizing this boy is Yusuke's younger brother. Before she can explain, Kizuki pulls out his phone and starts dialing the police to report a suspicious girl at his doorstep. Hana tries to explain herself, but Kizuki refuses to believe a word she says. The noise eventually draws Yusuke to the door. He steps outside, startled to find Hana and Kizuki standing among uniformed police officers. Once the situation is resolved and the authorities leave, Yusuke quickly apologizes for Kizuki's behavior and invites Hana inside to make up for the trouble. He offers her tea along with the rice cakes packed by her mother, noting how carefully arranged the contents are, especially the ribbon tied around the bag. Hana explains that she passed by a nearby flower shop on the way, where the shopkeeper had kindly tied it for her. When Yusuke mentions the shop, she recalls seeing Kizuki there and wonders if the woman Ritsuko is a relative. From his spot nearby, Kizuki begins to squirm. Without hesitation, Yusuke shares that Kizuki often drops by the shop because he likes the woman who works there. Kizuki immediately kicks him in frustration, and the brothers tumble into a small scuffle. Hana watches from across the table, quietly absorbing the scene. Her cheeks warm before she even notices, but Kizuki's sharp eyes catch it. Yusuke excuses himself to change out of his tea-stained clothes, reminding Kizuki to behave in the meantime. As soon as he's out of sight, Kizuki turns to Hana, asking if she likes his brother. She panics, stumbling over her words as she tries to downplay her feelings. But Kizuki only looks at her with mild disinterest, clearly unconvinced. Worry sinks into her chest as she realizes he might say something to Yusuke. She desperately offers to do anything to keep him from revealing the truth. When Yusuke returns, he's surprised to find Hana catering to Kizuki. Despite his concern, she insists she's fine, while Kizuki relaxes, satisfied with the turn of events. As the sun begins to set, Hana finally prepares to leave. Before leaving, she brings up the lost notebook and Yusuke apologetically returns it. She brushes off the matter of the hairpin, laughing it off as something that wouldn't suit her anyway. But just as she turns to go, Yusuke suddenly takes her hand, trying to convince her that she will look fine with the hairpin. For a moment, he holds it before letting go, reminding her that she wouldn't look strange at all. Hana is left staring at Yusuke, her face suddenly growing warm as the sensation lingers on her hand. From the window above, Kizuki watches them carefully, noting the subtle exchange. The next day, Toshiyuki vents his relationship frustrations to the group. He recounts how he went out with his girlfriend the day before, only for her to begin complaining about how broke she was. Believing it to be a subtle cue, he invited her over to his place, thinking it was finally time to take things further. But instead of accepting, she grew nervous and quickly suggested they head somewhere else. He expresses his disappointment, feeling confused after dating her for a while and assuming they had reached a level of trust. Yusuke, clueless as ever, fails to understand the hesitation. In his mind, going to someone's house would save money, making the suggestion practical. Tsutomu finally decides to give him a vague explanation that girls can be complicated, and it's important to be mindful because the smallest thing can ruin the mood. This causes Yusuke to spiral, mentally reviewing all the times he's been close with Hana. A wave of panic rises within him. Class resumes, but Yusuke remains distracted, his thoughts tangled in self-doubt. He replays every moment with Hana, wondering if she's just been too polite to complain. Despite his worries, he tries to reassure himself that Hana never looked uncomfortable. He doesn't notice the teacher calling on him until Kenta nudges him. Snapping out of his thoughts, Yusuke stands and admits he doesn't know the answer. The teacher notices he's holding a math book and reminds him that they're currently in literature class. Yusuke is told to pay attention and stay focused, and he agrees enthusiastically, deciding to ask Hana directly about how she feels. Later, the class prepares cheering props. Yusuke attempts to approach Hana, but Sumire suddenly needs volunteers to help buy more supplies. The class eagerly jumps in, suggesting they go together and leave Hana behind. As they urge Yusuke to join, he hesitates, wanting to stay with Hana. But Hana insists he goes, leaving Yusuke with a sinking feeling as he processes the rejection. Inside the stationery shop, Yusuke remains distracted, guilt gnawing at him over how he's acted around Hana. Sumire approaches, asking if he wants to buy a cheering fan like everyone else. When he doesn't respond right away, she tilts her head and asks if something's bothering him, and if it has anything to do with Hana. Yusuke is startled as she could tell, but Sumire only smiles, her expression composed even as she suppresses her true feelings. He eventually confides in her, explaining what happened yesterday at his place. As he talks, Sumire listens silently, masking her growing frustration over how close he and Hana have become. Once he finishes, she gently tells him he's likely just overthinking everything. Sumire assures him that Hana, as his friend, probably doesn't view him in a negative light. Encouraged by her words, Yusuke feels lighter and thanks her, saying he'll head back to school to speak with Hana directly. Sumire tries to follow, but her classmates call for her to help pick props. Forced to stay behind, she forces a smile, all the while cursing Hana silently in her thoughts. Meanwhile, Yusuke races back to campus. Just outside, he spots Hana taking out the trash. He watches as she slips on a puddle. From a distance, he calls out and asks if she's okay, startling her. When she turns to him, he wastes no time. He admits they need to talk and begins listing moments that might have come off as rude or inappropriate. He apologizes sincerely, concerned that he may have hurt her without realizing. Yusuke feels a sense of relief for finally getting the words out, but then he notices her hesitance with how she won't meet his eyes, how her posture turns guarded. He instinctively reaches out, only to stop himself as Hana finally speaks, still avoiding his gaze. She reassures him that she's not angry. Relieved, he offers to help and picks up one of the trash bags. He admits he doesn't understand girls all that well, but hopes he can learn someday. Later that evening, Hana stares fondly at a new game case ready to begin. She notices a character that vaguely resembles Yusuke and wonders if she should try his route first. But midway, she realizes how creepy that is and screams. Her parents hear her and assume she's seen a bug. One morning, Hana groggily joins her father for breakfast. He notes that she's running later than usual. Hana doesn't admit it, but she had stayed up playing an event in her new game. Her mother enters, collecting the empty dishes, and reminds Hana that today is the school's sports event. She casually asks what sport Yusuke will be participating in, and Hana answers that he'll most likely be in soccer. Her parents immediately begin arguing over who Yusuke is again. When her father comments that Yusuke doesn't look like someone who'd do well in soccer, Hana snaps that Yusuke is actually very athletic. The table falls silent. Her mother's face lights up, thrilled that Hana is defending him. Embarrassed, Hana bolts out the door while her father finally processes the fact that Hana just talked back to him. At school, Hana trudges toward the building and notices two classmates examining her class banner. They're commenting on how it looks different compared to the others. Hana glances up too and sees what they mean. The pom-poms she used for the border look completely different from all the other class banners. Yusuke suddenly appears beside her, also looking at the banner and then at all the decorations around the school. When he spots their class's display, he smiles and compliments Hana's work, saying it stands out in a good way. Hana stares at him, her thoughts drifting back to the game she played last night. She had picked a story route with a character who looked just like Yusuke. Flustered, she thanks him and rushes off to the classroom. Inside the classroom, the teacher gives final reminders before allowing the students to head to their assigned sports areas. Hana overhears Tsutomu complaining about being assigned to table tennis while Yusuke and his friends get to play soccer. Hana, meanwhile, silently prays that Yusuke doesn't get to see her part of the tournament. The sports fest begins with all the classes doing their best to beat their rivals. Tsutomu performs unexpectedly well and secures a win, tying their class with another. His teammates then look to Hana and tell her it's her turn. Tsutomu isn't confident, assuming Hana isn't athletic until he spots her pulling out a personal racket. His eyes widen, realizing she might actually be a regular at the sport. Tsutomu watches more closely as Hana takes her position for the next rally. The opposing team serves a fast ball, but Hana reacts without hesitation, returning it cleanly. Her movements are fluid, and it doesn't take long before she scores the final point, securing the win for their team. Her classmates cheer in surprise. When Hana returns to the group, Tsutomu asks where she learned to play like that. She mentions being part of the table tennis club in middle school. The comment makes him remember his own time in his school's club. As Hana stands next to him to rest, he starts to wonder about her middle school years. Wanting to be friendly, he invites her to watch the soccer game with him during their break. But Hana doesn't even think about it, as she declines, saying she doesn't have the voice to cheer. Meanwhile, over at the soccer field, Sumire and Yusuke are in the middle of a light, easy conversation. Tsutomu arrives just in time to see them sitting side by side. He starts to raise his hand to call out to Yusuke, but pauses when he notices the smile on Sumire's face. Then Sumire bunks shoulders with Yusuke by accident and blushes, making Tsutomu's heart clench. Two girls pass by Tsutomu, whispering that the two of them look like a couple. The words hit him like a brick. His heart drops, and without thinking, he turns away. The girls glance over at him, confused by how quickly he left. Tsutomu walks back to where Hana is, who has just tucked her game away. Sitting beside her, he casually asks if she's close to Sumire or if they've ever talked about love. Hana thinks for a moment and recalls a conversation where Sumire mentioned having a friend who liked the most popular guy in class. Tsutomu realizes Sumire was talking about herself, and the guy she likes must be Yusuke. He remembers how everyone around them treated their interaction like a romantic moment. If enough people see them that way, they might actually start dating. He doesn't want that to happen, and then he remembers a talk he once had with Yusuke, where Yusuke suggested that Hana might actually be a good match for him. Holding on to that memory like a thread of hope, Tsutomu decides the solution is to get Hana and Yusuke closer together. Without any filter, he turns to Hana and asks if she'd ever considered dating Yusuke. Hana freezes, panicked by the question. She stumbles over her thoughts, worried that the idea itself might cause trouble for Yusuke. But Tsutomu doesn't stop. He tells her that she fits Yusuke's type. Soon, the others on their team overhear and start joining the conversation. Some girls disagree with Tsutomu, saying that Yusuke and Hana are too different for it to work. Hana silently dreads what might happen if Yusuke ever hears this conversation. A part of her feels he'd be nothing but disgusted. Tsutomu then promises to set up a date for Hana and Yusuke. The team lights up with excitement, immediately launching into a discussion about potential date spots and fashion tips. But while everyone is buzzing with energy, Hana is quietly scrambling for a way to stop the idea from gaining traction. Summoning her courage, she suddenly exclaims that she doesn't want to go if it's Yusuke. Her words cut through the chatter like a blade. Tsutomu instantly goes pale. He urges Hana to look behind her. Turning slowly, she spots Yusuke standing there, equally pale and visibly stunned. He quietly states that he had come by to cheer on the class's table tennis team before turning away and leaving. Hana immediately realizes the huge mistake she's just made. Her teammates, reading the mood, slip away one by one. Tsutomu stays behind and quickly apologizes, taking responsibility for what just happened. He offers to clear up the misunderstanding himself and heads off to find Yusuke. Tsutomu eventually catches up to him and invites him to return to the table tennis venue to hang out. But Yusuke declines, saying he wants to watch the basketball team instead. It's clear to Tsutomu that Yusuke is still bothered by what he overheard. Trying to smooth things over, Tsutomu explains that Hana didn't really mean what she said and was probably just nervous. But Yusuke remains unconvinced and turns down the invitation once again. Tsutomu returns to Hana and reports that he failed to explain things clearly. He says it seems like Yusuke wants to hear the explanation directly from her. He advises that she try to speak to him before his next match. Before Hana can respond, they get called to play their next game. Hana is the first to step up. As she walks to her position, she begins to think of a plan. She realizes that if she keeps winning, she can delay the inevitable talk with Yusuke. With that in mind, she gives it her all, determined to stall for as long as she can until she feels ready. During a break, Hana heads to the vending machine, wondering how much longer she can keep up the winning streak. But just as she reaches for a drink, she notices Yusuke standing right next to her. Shocked, she tries to collect her thoughts, but Yusuke abruptly turns around and walks away without giving her the chance to say anything. She convinces herself that this is how things should be. Now that Yusuke is ignoring her, she can go back to living a normal, uneventful life. Meanwhile, Yusuke returns to where he and Tetsuo are having lunch. As they eat, he quietly vents his frustration about how he deliberately walked away from Hana, even though he knew she wanted to say something. This only makes Tetsuo laugh at how much it's bothering him. Back at the table tennis area, Hana's team finally loses their match. As the others prepare to head off and watch the soccer game, Hana declines to join them, instead offering to stay behind and help out with the tennis matches. Tsutomu begins to walk away with the rest of the group, but after a few steps, Yilt tugs at him. He turns around and tries to convince her to watch the soccer match with them after all. Hana hesitates, but Tsutomu doesn't let up. He urges her again, reminding her that Yusuke is a good guy, mentioning his own troubles with him. Hana argues that their situations are different. Tsutomu and Yusuke have been friends for a while, so it's easier between them. Sensing that Hana won't act unless pushed, Tsutomu gives her a gentle shove toward the soccer field. They arrive in the middle of the match and Sumire informs them that their class is still holding on, but barely. The opponent, a senior class, is proving too tough to beat. Just as they settle in to watch, the senior team scores another goal. Hana's eyes instinctively search for Yusuke. A twinge of worry creeps in. Down on the field, Tetsuo apologizes to Yusuke and Kenta for letting the ball slip past. Sumire leads a cheer, rallying the crowd as the class throws their energy behind the players. Hana watches Yusuke closely. She doesn't say anything at first, quietly supporting him in her mind. But as the game intensifies, her voice finally breaks free as she cheers his name out loud. Yusuke turns at the sound. Her voice cuts through the noise and reaches him clearly. But the distraction causes a ball to hit Yusuke in the face. The referee calls for a timeout. Blood trickles from his nose and he quickly leaves the field to visit the nurse. Before he leaves, Sumire offers him her handkerchief. Both she and Hana notice where his attention lingers, on Hana and not her. Sumire keeps her frustration to herself, silently cursing the moment. Hana, meanwhile, feels her stomach sink, blaming herself for his injury. After the sports festival ends, the class gathers to reflect on their performance. Sumire approaches Hana, sensing that something has changed between them. She tries to invite her to join the celebration, but Hana politely declines. Left alone in the classroom, Hana moves to change the water in the flower vase. As she lifts the vase, her thoughts drift to Tsutomu. He had gone out of his way to help her, but she still hadn't apologized to Yusuke. She realizes she can't let it end this way. She still owes him an apology. Sitting down at her desk, Hana begins writing a letter. She expresses how sorry she is for the way her words may have sounded. She confesses that she actually admires him and respects his kindness. Still, she writes she feels they can only remain friends, that anything more seems impossible for now. After reading it over, Hana decides the letter will have to do. She folds it neatly and makes her way to the shoe lockers. Just as she's about to slip the envelope inside Yusuke's locker, he appears. He casually explains that he had fallen asleep in the infirmary and is just now heading home. Then he notices the letter in her hand, his name written across it. He asks if he can read it. Hana, shaken but unable to say no, hands it over. Yusuke reads it silently. When he finishes, he looks at her and confirms what he suspects, that Hana does not hate him. Hana nods and he smiles, looking relieved. She watches him smile, a blush rising to her cheeks. She speaks up again, repeating that she doesn't hate him. Struggling to explain, she blurts out that she has maximum respect for him. Then, too embarrassed to say more, she turns and runs away. Yusuke is left standing at the lockers, the letter still in hand. Her words and her retreat leave him confused. At home, Sumire grumbles inwardly about how her romance with Yusuke isn't making any progress. As she prepares her ingredients for baking, she can't help but replay the moment during the sports festival when Yusuke's eyes immediately sought out Hana instead of her. Even their new seat arrangement doesn't help. Hana is now sitting closer to Yusuke than she is. The thought makes Sumire quietly seethe with frustration over how close Hana is getting to him. Later, she shares her homemade cakes with her friends. Tomoko immediately praises her, saying that whoever ends up dating Sumire would be lucky to eat her sweets every day. Amid their chatter, they notice their friend Chinatsu zoning out. When they ask her about it, Chinatsu shyly admits that she's developed a crush on Kenta. Sumire smiles and congratulates her, but in the back of her mind, she's already plotting. She sees Chinatsu's crush as a golden opportunity since Kenta and Yusuke are close friends. Any development between Chinatsu and Kenta might create more chances for her to get close to Yusuke. Back at school, Yusuke approaches her and hands her a new pink towel with pretty patterns, a replacement for the one he ruined during the sports festival, when it was used to stop the bleeding from his nose. Sumire is genuinely delighted and thanks him enthusiastically. However, her excitement dims a little when Yusuke adds that it was Tetsuo who picked out the towel for her. He admits he doesn't know much about towels and handkerchiefs. Still, Sumire reminds herself to stay grateful. It's a step forward, and she needs to keep playing her cards right if she wants to win him over. While waiting for class to begin, Sumire discreetly observes Yusuke. She watches as he casually helps Hana pick up a pen she dropped. Jealousy bubbles up inside her. Sumire can't help but envy how easily Hana interacts with him. Her own seat is too far away for such casual conversations. Just as she's watching the two, Tetsuo takes his seat beside her, blocking her view of Yusuke. She internally sighs. Tetsuo always seems to get in her way, constantly interrupting her attempts to get closer to Yusuke. After class, a teacher announces that all club activities are suspended until after exams so students can focus on studying. Shinatsu takes the chance to invite Kenta to study with her at a nearby restaurant. He happily accepts. When he turns to ask if anyone else wants to come along, the others all quickly claim they're busy, clearly understanding that Shinatsu wants to be alone with Kenta. Yusuke, however, doesn't seem to get the hint, prompting Sumire to intervene. She tells him to just play along and agree with her. With that, Kenta and Shinatsu leave together. Tetsuo looks at the board and notices that only Sumire and his name are listed for class duty. Yusuke, still oblivious, asks what task needs to be done. Caught off guard, Sumire admits the truth that she made up the story so Shinatsu and Kenta could spend time together. It finally clicks for Yusuke, and he realizes the whole thing was a setup for romance. Seeing an opportunity, Sumire invites Yusuke to stay behind and study with her. Yusuke agrees, and Sumire excuses herself to the bathroom for a moment. Once alone, she silently celebrates for finally having Yusuke all to herself. She hopes that this moment will make him realize she has feelings for him, and maybe he'll start thinking about asking her out. As she walks back to the classroom, she takes a few calming breaths to compose herself. But when she opens the door, she finds Yusuke peering out the window. Without warning, he suddenly bolts toward the exit, quickly apologizing and promising to come back once he finishes something. Baffled by his sudden rush, Sumire approaches the window to see what he had been looking at. Down below, she spots Hana, frantically trying to clean up a mess of fallen potted plants. Sumire watches from above, biting back her frustration. Once again, she feels like she's losing to Hana. A moment later, Tetsuo walks in, asking about class duty and where Yusuke went. Sumire forces a smile and tells him that she already took care of it. As for Yusuke, she claims he went down to help Hana, who dropped some seedlings. Casually, she tries to steer the conversation toward Yusuke's feelings for Hana. If she can confirm them, maybe she can twist things to her advantage. She also hopes to get Tetsuo on her side. Tetsuo studies her for a moment before bluntly asking if she has a crush on Yusuke. He then adds firmly that he has no intention of getting involved if she's scheming something underhanded. Sumire is momentarily stunned but quickly masks it with feigned innocence. Tetsuo, however, doesn't hold back. He tells her plainly that she'll never win Yusuke over if she keeps trying to manipulate people or meddle in other people's relationships. That hits a nerve. Sumire snaps, her carefully crafted facade slipping away. She admits she doesn't want to show any weakness or ugliness to the people she loves. What she's doing, she claims, is strategy, and every girl does it. She turns to leave, deciding to go home rather than let Yusuke see her like this. Before walking out, she warns Tetsuo not to spread rumors about her temper. No one would believe him anyway. She storms off while Tetsuo, now alone, mutters that girls are a pain. During swimming class, Hana feels uncomfortably self-conscious. To her, summer is the worst season for an ugly girl. Meanwhile, Sumire is surrounded by friends and even gets invited to another pool trip once summer break begins. Watching her glow, Hana struggles to lift herself from the water, overwhelmed by Sumire's brilliance. Inside the changing room, Hana pulls out a bottle she assumes is deodorant and frantically sprays a generous amount all over her body. Sumire notices and casually remarks that Hana is probably overdoing it with the body spray. Confused, Hana checks the label and realizes she's made a mistake. She takes a sniff of her own skin and instantly regrets it. Sumire suggests she head somewhere with better ventilation so the stench doesn't become suffocating. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, the boys grumble about the sweltering weather and complain about being placed in a different swimming class from the girls. Yusuke offers a neutral, innocent reason for the separation, but Kenta and Tsutomu reveal their true disappointment is because they just wanted to see their classmates in swimwear. Yusuke looks at them in disappointment, clearly unimpressed. He doesn't want to think of his friends that way, and the guys start teasing him, joking about what kind of girls he might want to see. Mid-conversation, one of them notices the wind picking up and moves to close the window, only to reveal Hana standing quietly behind it. Panic sets in among the boys. They're mortified that Hana might have overheard their entire conversation. But Hana quickly assures them she only caught a little bit and promises not to tell anyone. Yusuke, now flustered, blushes with embarrassment. He hates that Hana heard them speaking so crudely. Tsutomu, however, misinterprets his reaction and wonders if Yusuke is in love with Hana. At that moment, Sumire walks into the classroom and sees Yusuke's red face. She instantly assumes Hana is the reason behind his reaction and begins to see inwardly. As class begins, Yusuke remains distracted, still worried about what Hana might have heard. He decides to let it go for now and turns to hand her the class handouts. Hana reaches out to take them, but she awkwardly leans back, trying to maintain distance between them. Yusuke notices this and wrongly assumes she's avoiding him. In truth, Hana is just deeply self-conscious about how bad she smells from the earlier perfume incident. Later in the afternoon, rain pours heavily as students rush to leave the school. Hana heads to the umbrella rack and discovers hers is missing. She steps close to the exit, unsure of how she'll get home. Yusuke notices her standing awkwardly and calls out. When she doesn't have an umbrella, he starts to offer to share his, but hesitates midway. He panics, thinking Hana might find the idea uncomfortable or unpleasant. On the other hand, Hana sees his unfinished offer and assumes he must have changed his mind, not wanting to share with her after all. She quickly tells him it's fine, insists her house is nearby, and starts walking down the school steps into the rain. Yusuke catches up to Hana, grabbing her hand to stop her from walking further into the rain. Without hesitation, he insists that she take his umbrella. Hana tries to refuse, her protest soft and unsure, but Yusuke stands firm. He tells her he's worried and that he doesn't mind getting soaked, but Hana, as a girl, shouldn't have to walk home drenched. Hana gazes at him, moved by his sincerity. Yusuke notices and grows curious, asking about the way she's looking at him. Embarrassed, Hana mutters something about misinterpreting the moment. Flustered, she even slaps her own cheek to chase the thoughts away. She takes the umbrella, stiffly offering thanks and promises to return it as soon as she can, then hurries off. Yusuke stays in place, staring at the hand he had used to grab hers. He quietly wishes he could figure out how to talk to Hana properly. Lately, he's been getting worse at it. He starts the walk home, drenched and thoughtful. Just as he begins to settle into his internal monologue, a familiar voice calls his name. At first, he assumes it's just his imagination, until he sees Hana riding her bike toward him, clad in a raincoat. She stops in front of him and hurriedly returns the umbrella, apologizing for the delay. Yusuke blinks, surprised she came back just for that. Though flustered, he thanks her. They decide to walk home together. Hana hesitates at first, guilty that he's already soaked and now has to walk more in drenched clothes. Still, she can't bring herself to refuse him again. As they walk side by side, Hana subtly creates a gap between them. Yusuke notices and gently questions her about it. She admits that she doesn't smell very good today. Yusuke smiles, relieved that it's not rejection or avoidance. They continue walking, the silence between them no longer awkward, both privately thinking the other is a surprisingly unpredictable person. Days later, Sumire and Hana find themselves spying on Yusuke. Earlier, while Hana was tending to the classroom flowers, she discovered a letter addressed to him. She shared it with Sumire, who was stunned to find that someone else had attempted to confess to Yusuke. Though Sumire wanted to tell Hana to throw it away, she held back, reminding herself of the image she needed to protect. The two of them decided to hand over the letter to Yusuke, eager to hear his thoughts. To their dismay, Yusuke completely misreads the situation, believing it to be a challenge to a duel. Without hesitation, he says he'll go meet the sender, leaving the two girls speechless. Concerned he might actually pick a fight, Sumire suggests they follow from a distance. That's how they end up spying on Yusuke from behind a building. Soon, two girls approach Yusuke as he waits for the fight. Hana and Sumire try to listen in, but the shrill chirping of cicadas drowns out everything. Just then, Hana notices a cicada crawling on Sumire's back. She warns her calmly, but Sumire stiffens. Hana tries to brush it off, but the insect shifts and crawls up, prompting Sumire to let out a sharp, involuntary scream. The sound draws everyone's attention. Spotting the two hiding figures, Yusuke runs over to them, confused. Sumire quickly covers their tracks with a lame excuse that they came to help him in the fight. Yusuke smiles at them, and he tells them there was no fight, just a misunderstanding. Hana and Sumire relax, both smiling to themselves. They knew it wasn't a duel, but a confession. One morning, while reading a magazine about developing abs, Tsutomu loudly swears that today will be the day he finally gets Sumire's number. At school, he decides to ask Hana for help with his plan. Hana tries to insist that he should approach people who are closer to Sumire, but Tsutomu refuses. He says it has to be her, and that all she needs to do is go along with whatever he has planned. When they return to the classroom, Tsutomu wastes no time and announces that the class should hold a barbecue party for summer break. Hana realizes this is her cue, but before she can react, Sumire immediately agrees, saying it's a great idea. Tsutomu is stunned that the first person to support him is Sumire herself. What he doesn't realize is that she is only going along with the plan as a way to get closer to Yusuke. Fired up, Tsutomu sees this as his chance to show off, but he is quickly blocked by the louder voices of other male classmates. To Sumire's delight, Yusuke confirms that he will be joining the barbecue. Her excitement quickly dims, however, when she learns that Tetsuo will also be attending. Hana approaches Tsutomu, happy that Sumire had agreed to the idea. But before she can say anything else, Tsutomu suddenly declares that he and Hana will be the ones organizing the event. The classroom falls silent at his announcement, and Hana panics, realizing she has been dragged into a responsibility she never agreed to. Yusuke, shocked that Hana is helping, volunteers to help. Sumire, seeing this as the perfect chance to be near him, also raises her hand to join. Tsutomu, thrilled at the thought of being around Sumire, immediately suggests they continue their planning at his house, claiming his parents aren't home. To his horror, when they arrive, his mother is still there. She scolds him right away for neglecting his chores. Tsutomu hurriedly tells the others to wait and argues with her, reminding her she had said she would be out. When things finally calm down, Tsutomu apologizes as everyone settles in his room. Just as they begin to settle, his mother barges in again, scolding him for being a bad host. She brings snacks for the group herself and embarrasses him further by holding up the fitness magazine he had left in the bathroom. Once the interruptions are over, Yusuke naturally takes charge of the meeting. The discussion flows smoothly under his guidance, and the group quickly agrees on activities and settles the matter of food. By the end, the plans are complete, but Tsutomu and Sumire both wear forced smiles, disappointed they never got the chance to ask for their crush's number. Hana, however, is simply relieved that the meeting ended without further disaster. Yusuke excuses himself to use the toilet, and Tsutomu quickly signals to Hana to leave the room as well. He wants to use the opportunity to ask for Sumire's number. Hana, stiff and awkward, follows along and excuses herself too. Finally, alone with Sumire, Tsutomu struggles to find his words. Luckily, Sumire notices an album by a band she knows and immediately starts a conversation. Delighted that they share the same interest, Tsutomu talks enthusiastically about the band and their projects. In his mind, he thanks the band and even promises to become their biggest fan starting today. Their talk flows easily until Sumire suddenly suggests that they also think of some recreational activity for the barbecue. Tsutomu starts brainstorming, and when his eyes land on another album of the same band, an idea sparks in his mind. Meanwhile, Yusuke heads back toward the room when he spots Hana lingering just outside the door. Hana panics knowing Tsutomu would want more time with Sumire and quickly tries to stall him with small talk. She begins rambling about her excitement for the barbecue and even compliments Tsutomu's optimism and energy. Something about her words stirs Yusuke, who interrupts her. But instead of finishing his thought, he simply suggests that they rejoin the others. Back in the room, Tsutomu is frustrated that he still wasn't able to ask for Sumire's number. Before he can dwell on it, Yusuke suddenly proposes that they create a group chat so everyone can stay in touch. The class immediately agrees. Both Tsutomu and Sumire are secretly pleased, since it means they finally have their crush's number. Hana, however, decides to opt out, saying she only uses email. Sumire kindly offers to contact her if anything comes up. Eventually, the group goes their separate ways. Before leaving, Tsutomu tells Hana to stay behind and admits that he is planning to confess to Sumire on the day of the barbecue. At home, Hana reflects on everything. She always thought scenes like this only existed in shoujo manga and games, yet now she is caught in the middle of one. But then she remembers Tsutomu's earlier request to keep Yusuke away from Sumire so his confession could go smoothly. Her mother appears just then, showing her a batch of rice balls with pickled plums she prepared for Hana's classmates. Hana pales, already dreading all the socializing she will need to do to hand them out. Meanwhile, at Tetsuo's place, his family pesters him about the barbecue trip, even teasing him about tagging along. Kizuki is there too, hanging out as usual. Suddenly, Tetsuo gets a message from Tsutomu telling him to wear black. Moments later, Yusuke arrives at the door, announcing that he's there to pick up Kizuki. The next day, Hana feels pleased with how the breeze moves near their chosen spot for the barbecue. She notices Yusuke setting up the grill and makes an attempt to approach him, but before she can, Sumire and Tsutomu rush over, full of excitement, and block her path. Hana steps back, quietly watching the three interact until Kizuki notices her and walks up. He reveals that he is joining them to observe people for his research project. Soon, more of their classmates begin arriving. Yusuke apologizes for his brother's sudden presence, but the group welcomes him easily, many even finding Kizuki adorable. Sumire, determined to use the opportunity, begins plotting to win Kizuki over so she can get closer to Yusuke. She tries to start a conversation, but Kizuki immediately walks past her and heads to Hana, demanding tea. Remembering their deal, Hana quickly complies, which earns Kizuki a smack from Yusuke. Sumire fumes as she realizes Hana already seems to be on friendly terms with Kizuki. When preparations for the barbecue begin, Hana makes sure to keep Yusuke busy and away from Sumire. Their classmates notice how closely she sticks by his side, and Hana starts worrying they might think she has feelings for him. The group, however, only asks if Yusuke is bossing her around. Yusuke immediately defends himself. With Yusuke distracted, Tsutomu signals to Hana that it's time to move forward with their plan. They exchange a series of strange hand signals, confusing Kizuki, who has been quietly observing them. Finally, they settle on an agreement. Tsutomu suggests dividing tasks. Sumire is placed in the preparation team while Hana and Yusuke are assigned to Frisbee. The rest of the class is free to help wherever needed. The Frisbee game begins, but Hana struggles to throw properly, sending the disc flying all over the place. Soon the entire Frisbee group chases after it. The cooking team can't help but watch with admiration at how much fun the others are having. Tsutomu tries to show off by lighting the grill but ends up embarrassing himself. Eventually, everyone enjoys the barbecue together. The group notices how close Kenta and Shinatsu seem, especially when Shinatsu helps wipe barbecue sauce off Kenta's face. Tsutomu, hoping for the same from Sumire, smears sauce on his own cheek, but Tetsuo simply hands him a wet tissue, forcing him to clean up himself. Keizuki finishes his report and announces he'll head home, but the group insists he stay. Kizuki looks at Yusuke, who gives him an approving smile, silently telling him it's fine to stay. After eating, Tsutomu announces the start of their recreational activity. The organizers, joined by Tetsuo, pull out water guns and goggles. Tsutomu grins and declares that everyone just needs to avoid getting wet till the end of the song. Kenta complains when the organizers recruit Tetsuo, but once Tsutomu announces that the prize will be Sumire's cookies, the other team quickly agrees to play. Soon, everyone arms themselves with water guns and starts spraying at one another. Amid the chaos, it doesn't go unnoticed that Kenta rushes to protect Chinatsu, which she nearly gets hit by Tsutomu. Eventually, the organizers win. Tetsuo happily munches on the cookies while the others collapse onto the ground, sitting or lying down in exhaustion. Hana takes this as the perfect opportunity to bring out the rice balls she prepared. Before she can, Sumire steps forward with her own set of rice balls, offering them to everyone. The group lights up, happily accepting her food. As the others eat, Yusuke notices Hana slipping away toward the bags and quietly follows. He finds her trying to hide a small container of rice balls. When he asked about it, Hana explains that her mother had prepared them, but since there's already plenty of food, she plans to just eat them later at home. Yusuke smiles, insisting on trying one. Reluctantly, Hana hands him a rice ball. Nearby, Tsutomu catches sight of their interaction and thinks this is the perfect chance to score some of Sumire's homemade rice balls for himself. But when he turns toward her, he notices her gaze fixed elsewhere. Before he can act, Tetsuo casually takes a rice ball from Sumire, praising its taste. He even reaches for another, and Tsutomu marvels at how effortlessly Tetsuo interacts with her. Frustrated, Tsutomu rushes over and begins stuffing Sumire's rice balls into his mouth in an attempt to get her attention. He ends up overeating and soon feels sick. Hana approaches him as he lies down and offers stomach medicine. He accepts it, covering his face with his hat, and apologizes. He feels miserable that his plans keep falling apart despite Hana doing her part so well. He knows bitterly that Sumire never seems to notice him, and even when she does, it's always when he's making a fool of himself. He wonders if Hana secretly wants to laugh at him, but she quietly promises she won't. Her sincerity surprises him, and he swears that he'll work hard to become more manly and cool over the summer. Meanwhile, Kizuki continues jotting down his observations. At one point, he pauses and notices Yusuke watching Hana and Tsutomu with a thoughtful gaze. As evening settles in, Tsutomu regains his usual energy. But during preparations for fireworks, Hana accidentally trips and spills water all over the fireworks they were supposed to light. Horrified, she quickly gets up and apologizes profusely. Her classmates, however, are more concerned about her well-being. Noticing a scratch on her arm, they instruct her to wash it properly and reassure her not to worry since fireworks can always be done another time. While most of the set is ruined, they realize that the sparklers are still usable. The group tries to make the best of it, but Yusuke grows distracted, wondering why Hana hasn't returned yet. Kizuki hands him 2 sparklers he discovered to still be intact. Meanwhile, Hana sits at a distance, watching the group from afar. She decides against rejoining them, convinced they might secretly be upset with her for ruining their final activity. To her surprise, Yusuke approaches and quietly offers her one of the sparklers. The two light them together. Hana notices hers starting to burn out, but Yusuke moves his closer until hers flares back to life. He says he wants to enjoy time with everyone again, and Hana is taken aback to realize that she is being included in that thought. He reassures her that she is always welcome, especially since summer is far from over. Their moment is interrupted when Kizuki announces that one of the larger fireworks had survived. Everyone gathers as it shoots into the night sky, brilliant colors blooming above them. None of them notice Kizuki had sketched a picture of Hana and Yusuke, side by side, their sparklers glowing in the dark. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every week.